Hey, everybody, we are live. Welcome to Surviving Quarantine by Spreading Life. And I'm so excited because I have Quinn with us today. Quinn, I am so excited about you because one, we can get a little bit nerdy about the math science, which I love, but then also you put it in such relevant in real terms that doesn't matter which side of the equation, if you're right brain or left brain, like you can understand it and you can see the importance of it. So I'm excited for people to get to know you today.
Well, I'm excited to be here too, Emily. So thank you for the invitation, and this is definitely a great way to shake it up during quarantine.
Yes. So while you're watching, please continue to like, subscribe, and share as we continue to bring positivity to your newsfeed because that is our goal on this. And then also, we would love for you to, whoever is watching, to please answer the question, who is joining us? We want to know who is joining us currently and possibly maybe where are you from? So with that, let's just go ahead and get started, Quinn. Tell us about yourself.
I'm Quinn. I'm calling in today from Chicago, but you may notice the accent. I was born in North Florida, and then went to school in Charleston, South Carolina. Lived in Charlotte for a few years, and then actually been in Chicago now for about 4 years. So my background is in engineering. I played football at the Citadel, and then had a fifth year of eligibility to play football. So I actually got my MBA as well, and so doing that there. Kind of led me down a non-traditional engineering path. I am a licensed engineer in North and South Carolina. My grandfather was an engineer. My parents were architects. So I have this technical background that's there, but, I've also kind of come to things from the different sides. So I've been in business development. I've been in management. And so, for me, what I'm trying to do now is really, as I started looking back at my career and some of the things that, have helped me be successful, I realized a lot of it didn't happen in the classroom. And a lot of it didn't have to do with the technical skills I had. It was more the people skills. And so whether that was being a cadet or being a football player, and the common thread through all those was kind of emotional intelligence. And so then you look at EQ and you're like, well, where do you get EQ? I didn't get it in the classroom. It's really not taught in any the technical curriculums. And so it was like, how can I get EQ back to the people? And then kind of in your intro a little bit, I like to be a little nerdy, but I also like it to be real and relevant. And it's the difference between I spent a lot of time on construction sites, and what you get from a set of plans and drawings that somebody makes sitting in an office is one thing. What you actually have to make work out in the field is a different thing. And so I'm kind of trying to do the same thing here as, just put it in common term, language that we can use to have a real conversation because, whether people admit it or not, we're all emotional. Questions I usually ask people is, do you consider yourself emotional? And, if they don't raise their hand, I'll just remind them that's their emotions, telling them not to raise their hand. You're kind of, you're in denial a little bit. And so, that's it's really that. It's just saying, okay, so we are all emotional. How do we control these? And really my ultimate goal is let's make our emotions the best of us. Don't let them get the best of us. And how do we do that? And it's by spending some time to get to know where we're coming from. On the emotional side.
I love that. And there's a few things because I love engineers. I have a family of engineers. But the one thing that sometimes we get frustrated at, and I'm even myself in designing, that we design things in a perfect vacuum. Mm-hmm. And it is with perfection. But then whenever it goes out into the reality, there's so many more factors to it. So I love that that's what you do. And like you have the experience in that as well on what the knowledge is, the technical side, but also how to imply in a practical way. So I do want to get started with just talking about EQ power. But to do that, let's go back to the basics of what actually is power.
Oh, it's a simple physics lesson here. In this, you may notice, and actually a little small shout out to a friend of mine, Chip Baker. He just wrote the Equations of Success, the book that he just wrote. And it's kind of funny. He's done some of the same things, the equations that make sense to him. So if anybody goes back to physics and they see this power just work over time, and, I started thinking about this. And so what's the power of EQ? And, EQ really allows us to do more work or more meaningful work in less time, or the same amount of time. So anytime, if the meaningful work goes up and it's done in the same amount of time, that EQ power goes up, and that's what we're really trying to do is optimize the power of EQ. Because a lot of people say, well, I'm an engineer, I just need to work on my technical skills, and really the other thing that's going on that we haven't talked about already is you have AI and automation are coming into every part of it's in the drive-through, right? And so but even the the more white collar professions, design, I look at what it used to take me to do 3 days if I was going to do a stormwater design layout for a school. I can do that in about 3 hours now with the same program. And so you're not getting paid just to put numbers into a calculator and take that out. You've got to be creative and collaborative. And that's the piece that we start looking at. Okay, well, how do you collaborate and how are you creative? It's, working with other people. And how do you work with other people? Well, you got to have emotional intelligence. And so it's like, this is where it really comes from and how it relates to folks who traditionally said, no, just give me my equations. Let me sit in front of my computer and I'm going to go hammer them out. And it's like, that would have been great. But if you are going to future proof yourself or be the engineer tomorrow, that's not going to get you by. You're going to have to do more than just sit there and, crunch numbers.
And I love that aspect of it because, again, when it comes to the math side, that I do this thing, and it's where there's people that find problems, there's people that talk about problems, there's people that think about problems, there's people that do things about problems. And a lot of the time I find a lot of people that in math oriented science, a lot of engineers they think amazingly. But the thing is you have to have other teammates on it, or you have to have the abilities to do some of the other aspects in communicating your design. And that comes with emotion, because one thing that I learned to be as successful in engineering and design is that it has to be other people's idea. Like I can be as smart as I want, but if they don't buy into it, and if they don't care about it, it's not going anywhere. And I think that's some of the part right here, that it's meaningful work. And then also whenever other people buy in, it's over less time. So let's go in a little bit more depth about what does meaningful work even mean?
Well, so, this is, some people say like deep thought, if you think make a concerted effort, you want to be concentrated, that's one of those things, how do you get into that, we're really focusing on what matters. That's one aspect of it for me. The creative is the other. It's like, how do we, if you have a closed mindset, you're not going to come up with that, off the wall idea. Right. And you look at some of the things that are out in the world today that people have said, that's ridiculous. Nobody needs that. I heard a great one the other day. The first Sony Walkman, the guy who invented that thought it was just going to be something for golfers to listen to while they were playing golf. Right. I mean,
Wow.
So, like, where's the market for this? Just golf, and so, you see that, and that's where that creativity comes in. And then also, the collaboration feeds into those other two, because, again, we're so, one of the nice parts about the way AI and things are helping is, there's so much going on, right? There's rapid change in the world right now. And so you almost have to niche down what you're doing. So we're going to have a lot of experts, but you're going to be an expert who's going to rely on experts that are, also experts. So you're going to have to work with them. And so you can't do that if you can't collaborate. And so, those to me are kind of the tenets of what meaningful work is, from a standpoint of, we're getting more done, getting things done that haven't been done before. That's what we're really trying to drive to, be that company of the future. I mean, if we look at, even thinking about right now and, where we are with COVID and everything, there's companies that are in 3 different phases. Some are, they're having to do more with less people, because it's just the nature of where things are, or they're having to get more work out of the same people. Or there's some companies, you think of Amazon and some of the things going on now, like they're trying to hire more people. And in that crazy environment, each one of those environments has its own challenges, and all of them flow back to, okay, how are the people in this environment performing? And those are all places where, you need to have the, that meaning, that emotional tie to it to make it, kind of hold it all together.
And it's not about getting warm bodies. It's about getting people that have that meaningful work aspect into it. And I like what you said on those aspects of the collaboration, because I actually had this conversation with my son the other day, because he is he's very engineering minded, math, like that's his thing. And what I was telling him is that you got to understand, in the future, just now, like I can ask Google anything. Facts can be found like that. YouTube, I learned how to do tons of so the learning curve is so steep, like exponential. So facts are not they're important, but it's what we do with them and how we communicate them to others is really where that comes into play. So I love that you talk about that in the meaningful work aspect of it. So for the other aspect, we have meaningful work over less time. So EQ is meaningful work over less time. So what does less time mean?
So, I mean, one of the things that's come up a lot, and I think if you look at engineering, another trend that we're up against is over the last, especially in the last 20 years, probably even before that, we've gotten really good at efficiency and how fast can we do something that we've done before. And so, there's some value in that. But when I look at the less time and how it relates to this, there's an old adage that says go slow to move fast, and it's understand what you're doing. And so it doesn't mean just run breakneck, speed. It's knowing, where, okay, let's take a chance. That fail fast aspect of it is, okay, we're not going to know which one's the right one, but we're just going to keep doing things, and we're going to feel like, we have this psychological safety to make these micro bets. And so we're going to do that. So that failing fast just means it's okay if we don't get it right, but we're learning that we're going down, the wrong path quickly, and so that's a time savings there. If you have EQ and you admit your limitations, that's again where you're saying, okay, here's the piece where I know I can't do everything, so I need some help to do this. And and instead of just, well, let me, and this is actually, it's a funny side note to this is a lot of reasons why people fail the PE, the engineering exam, is they get stuck on problems. And one of the first questions I ask people when if they haven't passed is, did you finish the test? It's like, no way, I didn't get through all the problems. And I was like, well, how did you sort which problems you worked on? It's like, well, I just went through in each problem. And it's like one of these things where, for me, when I took those tests, I would go through the whole test. If I knew the question, knew the answer, I would work on it. If I didn't, I'd make a guess, I'd flag, and I'd go to the next one. And then I would start working back to the exam and get to, my whole thought process was I want to spend the most time on the things that have the greatest chance of having a positive impact on. And so, that was me just saying, sure, could I sit there, and it's tough because it's an open book test. So you're like, the answers are all here. I know I can find it. But, the goal isn't to, answer every question. It's to get 80% right through the end of the exam. And so it's one of those things where, sometimes we get caught in that even in real world, and work. And it just is one of those things where, okay, admit that you tag out, you need some help. And by not wasting that time trying to muscle through it or do it yourself, you're actually saving, time again. And that's the, reset course. And that's just saying, okay, hey, we're not going where we need to go. Let's go back to something that, that makes sense. And so that's the other, it's kind of some of the hidden things. It's not just, can we do it in, 10 minutes where before it took us 15 minutes? It's like, can we make sure that we're doing the right thing, so that we're not wasting, you could be humming along, great, but you're going down the wrong road. I just think of the car analogy. It's like, if you're, doing 100 miles an hour, but, you're going to Kansas and you're trying to get to Florida, it doesn't make any sense. So, it's just trying to, look at it a little more holistically.
I love that. Oh, there's so many things I love about that. One, I love the term micro bet. I am so stealing that one because that's true. It is. It's like they are. And the thing I'm big about is fail often because and celebrating your failures, because I was taught at a young age that, as my father being an engineer, that the 1,000 different ways that he failed, the one way that he was successful gave us the life that we have. And so that imposed on me at a young age. So how many ways, and the faster you fail, the quicker you have a micro bet for a greater chance that you're actually going to be successful. So that one, and then admitting the limitations, that one's huge, because a lot of the times I've found in the design process, you put your guts, you put your soul, you put into every this, and then you hear somebody like down it, and you're like, I just spent months on this. I've went back and forth. We have redone what you said 15 times, like hearing like what a client say, and then you're going to tell me that it's not working. You're going to kill the whole product. It's like, as somebody that's just like, but then the reset and recourse, I think that's a part of it, is that resetting, one, your ego on top of that, but two, resetting that, hey, not just plan A, let's go to B, C, D, and E, and be adaptable in these situations. And so, and this is my favorite thing, that EQ, what you say is EQ power equals accelerated innovation. And I love that because as somebody that's a physiologist on the aspect of knowing the body well,
Mm-hmm.
that what you do is in this process of having meaningful work over less time, you're reducing stress and you're
Right.
creating curiosity and you're creating aspects where people can use their full brain and be open. So let's talk about this right here on why is it accelerated innovation for you?
So again, it's just that piece. The innovation is, we're creating something new, and it's accelerated because we're using those other, components to, make it happen, faster. And again, not just in a time standpoint, but moving in the right direction, on the right, course of action with what you're doing, and that's the piece that, again, this doesn't. People think of like work, I always remember like, well, how much you get done today? And it's like, a lot of work now isn't, you're not a factory worker, right? You don't come in and you push a button and you don't get the same output every day. And, one of the analogies, I like to talk to people about is think about last time you built a deck, right? You spend all this time measuring where the holes go. You spend all this time digging where the holes, you put the posts in, you set everything, and you spent days out there. It doesn't look like you've done anything. And then all of a sudden you come in and you lay all the lumber down, and it's like, oh wow, it looks like like, wow, you built a deck, like you built a deck in a day. Well, yeah, you built a deck in a day because you dug the holes and did everything else you needed to the 3 days prior to it. And so what you're doing really with this EQ is you're setting that foundation so that once you're on the right course and you know what you're doing and everybody's bought in, then you have that exponential growth and you take off. And that's the piece that, sometimes we forget is, it's just doing is, again, you're doing something, but you don't know that you're headed in the right direction. And that's sometimes we got to take that step back and recognize what it is that we want to do, so that we can, be innovative and creative.
And what I hear from that too is something I love to talk about is we're not human doers, we're human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great
And so
phrase.
how can we be human beings in the moment? And I feel like this does this so well. So I just love it. I will ask if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. I know that we do have Laura did say, hey, and that she's watching. Thank you so much. If anybody else is watching, let us know who is on right now. And I know that Laura actually has 4 of her kids are engineers, so
Oh, wow.
or ones that are have been crafting and creating since very young. So I know that she can relate so well of being the mother of them. But that is something too of these aspects of it. What is the best advice? Because we just talk about EQ power, and it sometimes seems like it is personal, just one person. But you also talk about the collaboration, so it's that we aspect to it as well. So with that, why is EQ power not just important, or emotional intelligence not just important for one person, but for everybody?
Well, I think it gets to, I mean, that collaboration, we are, the sum of the parts is greater, or the, sum of the whole is greater than the, sum of the parts. And that's the piece that we need to recognize. That's where we're really growing beyond ourselves. The thing to think about too, though, is, we look at, emotional intelligence, there are actually 4 components of it. And,
Mhm.
it starts with self, and then understand, you've got to know yourself internally, then you got to know how you express yourself to other people. And then you have to recognize, other people's, their identity and their emotions and other people, and then how you collaborate with those other people. And so it's bringing all those together. And are there going to be times where, yes, you're out on a project by yourself, you're working on something independently, that, that does happen. But when you're getting to, again, where we're in these siloed areas and you're trying to get, think about it. If I had to worry about, and this is interesting because, one of the things, one of the reasons I became an engineer was my mom said, Quinn, as an architect, you always have to have an engineer. As an engineer, if you're creative, you don't have to have an architect. And, one of the things you think about an architect, and I joke this, my specialty is exterior envelope, roofing, walls, and how to keep, water out of buildings. And that's what I focus on. As an architect, you got to know windows, doors, finishes, all these other things that kind of have. And so you dilute, some of the things that you have to do just by learning so many other things. Well, now, instead of me saying, hey, I've got to know all about windows and doors and all this stuff, I just get to know my part really well. I trust that they know their part really well. And we're able to communicate with each other. And it's because we can communicate in a way that, is meaningful to both of us. Then we're getting to, take the best of what we're doing instead of having to, everyone's got weaknesses. And that's one of the other things too is, it's not that, hide it or say you don't have it. It's recognize it and say,
Mhm.
there's there's a thing I like, think of is like if I had Legos, right, and I've got I can make a little table. If I've got 3 legs that are normal size and one short, okay, I don't have anything of that, but now all of a sudden you've got the same thing. Well, we could put our Legos together and our 2 short legs make a long leg, and then we've got a double sided, together we can make a full table. And so it's just like these little things, thinking about it that way is, we complement each other. We're not, fighting against it or competing against each other. And I think that's where we need to have more of this collaboration, or, it's just that's going to be the difference maker in the future is how well can you collaborate with people, in a meaningful way.
And I love that. And I believe in that so much because, well, if you ever get an email from me, and I've said this probably a billion times, it says the kiss of death is to be the genius with 10,000 helpers. But you need to be the genius with 10,000 geniuses.
Right.
That's for true success. And so I think that's something that's very important. And that's actually, I got that from having a frustration with an engineer that saw everybody as helpers. And in ways that I've learned that everybody can contribute and we don't have to be we all have our own specialties and then we all can give back. So I absolutely love that. And I'm grateful for this conversation with you because it is so like I could go in probably for hours on this right now. But for me, I think it's amazing at the work that you're doing. And I have such admiration for you taking work and you're putting it in ways that people can understand it. Because as somebody that has a child that is math oriented, and I literally have to make everything something form of a math equation for him. It's like I saw this, I was like, oh, yes, it's a math equation, and he can get it, So
it's the universal language.
It is.
That music, and music's math anyway, so it's just
And so now when people ask if they use math today, we can actually say yes, they did.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. And it's simple math. You don't need a calculator or slide rule. But
I appreciate you. And thank you for everybody that has joined in. Again, if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them on. But if not, we will actually, or right actually a little over our time that we like to stay at. But I could talk with you for hours.
No joke. Yeah, we can definitely pick up the conversation later because it's something, it's funny. Yeah, this is a conversation I don't get tired of having. And so and each time I learn something new. And I would say, the couple things, one aspect of this is people usually think, IQ is fixed or, I'm just that way. And to some degree it is. I mean, there's brain plasticity. There's a lot of things that you can be a lifelong learner. So don't think about that. But the really cool thing is EQ there's no, ceiling to it. And it's something that, you can become more, emotionally intelligent your whole life. So, I mean, it is something that you really, as you pursue it, it becomes more meaningful and more fun and you really enjoy it. And so, once you give it a chance, you want to keep giving it another chance. And so, it is something truly that that can grow. And people look at, it's interesting too, just given for, if there's a standard IQ, where you are on the EQ scale then determines really how happy you are. So given, you and I are the same intelligence, you have a high EQ, I have a low EQ, we're just as smart as each other, you're going to be happier than I am because your EQ is higher. And that opportunity is available to all of us, and so, just thinking, oh, I'm not emotional or, that's not who I am. We all are emotional people. We just have to give ourselves a chance to be that.
And it is, and it's not a bad thing either.
No.
It's not a bad thing. It's like we're raised a lot of times to think that our emotions are something that we want to hide, especially I come from I'm the only female. And then I have 2 brothers. It's like the stoic. I've always want to be stoic in myself, not even show emotion. So it's awesome to see a male say it to people as well. That is also an engineer. That is also, and that's the thing that I just appreciate so much about you is your openness and your relevance to speaking things that people need to know, because it is like, we know this is what makes people successful, but it's not taught in school. We know that. So it's the difference makers and people that really grasp into this will really see, because we've seen it. We know how much has affected our success, what not. So the continuation on it. So I appreciate you. And also Joe said, good stuff. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
So awesome. And I love it. And again, thank you for everybody watching. Thank you, Quinn, for joining us
No,
today.
thank you for having me. This has been great, and glad to have this conversation anytime you want to. So
Awesome. You know it.
yeah.
Have an awesome and blessed day, y'all.